Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, we have former Boston College player Lexi Bender, where she made the national championship game back in 2016. Welcome to the podcast, Lexi, and how's everything going?
Everything's going well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you so much for coming on. And what have you been up to recently since the pandemic's been going on for a year, and have you been trying to stay busy throughout this time period?
So I graduated from law school and then was studying for the bar exam, took the bar exam. So now I'm less of a hockey player and a full-time attorney.
Oh, nice. And how's that been like?
It's good. It's busy, but it's one of those things, just like shooting pucks or putting extra work with hockey. You don't really mind the work when it's something you've kind of always wanted to do.
That's awesome to hear. And I want to start off this podcast talking about the beginning of your hockey career. You're from Washington. How did you start playing hockey, and talk about growing up in Washington?
Yeah, so my dad played hockey, University of Alaska Fairbanks. And so as soon as I expressed the slightest interest, he had me in skates and I was stuck. Hockey wasn't the biggest in Seattle when I was growing up. So there were a lot of trips to British Columbia. It was really a family thing. My little brother plays at University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. And then my dad and mom, a lot of windshield time. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the hockey scene like in Seattle? Because obviously they're getting an NHL team next season. What's it like there, and what's it like being a player in that hockey atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, for me growing up, it was great. I got to play with the boys. Like I said, there's lots of competition in British Columbia. There were no girls teams when I was growing up, really. Now there's several organizations that are all very competitive. So it's great to see how excitement around the NHL team has really propelled the growth of hockey.
Yeah, and who was your favorite growing up? Who was your favorite player growing up, and what part of their game did you admire the most?
Oh, geez. I was always a Canucks fan because that was our closest team growing up. Never really had one favorite player. I really watched the position. Hockey night in Canada was like a ritual for our family, watching that. There were several times woke up on the couch after games. It was kind of like how you end your day, how you do that. So really just watching the position.
Yeah, and going to Boston a few years later, obviously the Canucks-Bruins rivalry's pretty big up here. What was it like being a Canucks fan in Boston?
It was crazy. I think that after enough time in Boston, it's safe to say that I'm officially a Bruins fan, full on converted.
Nice.
But at that time, it was really cool to kind of bring a little bit of home to Boston.
Yeah, and before Boston College, you played for Shattuck St Mary's. How'd you get the opportunity to play with that school?
Yeah, so like I said, there wasn't a lot of girls hockey in Seattle, and so at some point the boys just got a little bit too big. I had my collarbone snapped, and we started looking into girls hockey options. I had a whole binder full of the different prep schools with good hockey programs, and Shattuck St. Mary's was number one on my list. So I was at a boys showcase tournament in Chicago, and the Shattuck scout happened to be there and saw me play, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah, transitioning from boys hockey to girls hockey, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make? Because obviously the two sports are a bit different.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was as much of a transition as it was just I was very aware from playing boys hockey. And like I said, I had my collarbone snapped. You're kind of picking up the puck and always checking over your shoulder because making sure you're not going to get steamrolled. But transitioning to the girls game where you could hold on to the puck a little longer definitely gave me confidence.
Now, what was it like being part of Shattuck St. Mary's and just the historical program they had? Because they had a lot of legendary hockey players that went there, like Nathan MacKinnon, Sidney Crosby, the Lamoureux twins, and Brianna Decker. And did you feel any pressure trying to add to that historical program?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something where you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm literally in the best place in the world for hockey. I remember my very first shinny skate, Amanda Kessel dangled me, went right through my legs. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot of work to be done. So, I mean, I came up with a great group there, still some of my best friends to this day. And so we all kind of just support each other and we were all there doing what we love. So I wouldn't say pressure to add. I think it's you recognize the brand that Shattuck St. Mary's is and your responsibility to the next generations, the next people that are going to wear the jersey. And you just, I don't know, it's just like anything. You're just proud and you want to communicate that pride in how you play and how you work.
Yeah, and what was your favorite memory at Shattuck when you look back at your time there?
Yeah, I would say that my first national championship at Shattuck, we were the first U16 girls team to win national championship. The prep team had won several, but our squad was the first to get a U16 win. So that was pretty special to have a first in a place like that.
Yeah, definitely. And how did your time at Shattuck help prepare you for your time in Boston College?
Yeah, I think that it really helped me get set up on a lot of fronts. So being away from home, first of all, and learn how to manage my time, how to feed myself, how to do laundry, things like that a few years earlier than I would have had I not gone to Shattuck. And then just learning the expectation of the work that it takes to be an elite athlete. I've always been pretty focused, but when you're surrounded by people who are equally, if not more focused, it helps you step up your game and step up your habits. And so I think that by being surrounded by those type of athletes, I was very ready for the jump to Boston College.
Yeah, and I want to talk about your recruitment process. What was that like for yourself, and why did you choose to go to Boston College? Because I know the recruitment process has changed throughout the years.
Yeah. So when I was getting recruited, there was like some deadline where like at midnight, coaches started emailing you. And my road to Boston College started a few years earlier. When I was in the fourth grade, we were studying American history in my school. And so my family planned a trip to Boston just to see I don't know, the Freedom Trail, like the history, bring it all to life, whatever. And then while we were there, my dad tied in a trip to Boston College and we looked at the rank. We actually met with the assistant coach, Katie King. And the whole message was like, okay, if you keep working at hockey, you could like make your way to a place like this. And I was just like, obviously so impressionable. And so I've always wanted to go to Boston College ever since that. And so the first few coaches started talking to me and I had a conversation with my dad. He's like, where do you want to end up? And I said, Dad, if BC emailed me tomorrow, that's where I would go. And it wasn't the next day, but about a week later, they emailed me and um, I shot back with, I've wanted to go there since the fourth grade, since I actually like have met you before. And Coach King pretended that she remembered me. I still don't think she did, but but it was just kind of full circle, good story.
That's awesome, man. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? Was it the mental side of the game, making quicker decisions, or was it more the physicality of the game since you're going against players that were 4 years older than you were when you were a freshman?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was the speed for sure and the mental aspect. Um, it also is a tough transition because while you're in high school, it seems like hockey's your life. When you get to college, it's literally a full-time job, and that's what's keeping you in school. That's what's paying for your education. And so kind of switching to a more workman-like mentality was definitely an adjustment as well.
Now, you were talking about in Shattuck how you learned how to balance both academics and hockey at such a high level. How did you do it in college, and what's the secret to it?
Secret is to make a lot of lists. Start every day by making a list. I did well at BC. I was able to double major while playing hockey, and I attribute that all to, like I said, making lists, having good habits. My mom is a high school teacher, and so she always pushed education growing up, and I think that that really helped me to have those habits to succeed academically at BC.
Yeah, no, I'm a freshman this year in college, and that's something I'm learning a lot is trying to manage my time. But it's a lot different since it's online versus like in person, and that's something I've been trying to adjust to as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a lot tougher when you don't have the accountability to show up and get dressed. So I don't envy you.
No, it's hard, but the one I don't mind it. Like I've definitely gotten used to it throughout this past year. And the one thing I don't like about Zoom is the whole Zoom breakout rooms. I don't know if you've ever had to do it, but like they basically pair you up in groups and they send you in a breakout room and you have to be with three people that don't ever talk at all. So that's probably the toughest part. I wish they made us more independent when it came to our group work in college.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that.
Now, in your first year at Boston College, you lost to Northeastern in the Beanpot. Talk about your first Beanpot experience and what did you take away from it, even though you lost? Because being from Boston myself, the Beanpot is one of the coolest things that the city has to offer hockey wise.
Yeah, yeah. So I wasn't too familiar with the bean pot before playing in my first one, but obviously, like you said, it doesn't take much to realize how much tradition and history is entrenched in that tournament. So I think that I took that first experience as like this is something that's really cool to be a part of, and then moving forward, I had a lot more respect for those 2 weeks. It's so special. And when we are finally able to win, we won 2 while I was at BC. It was just probably my favorite, some of my favorite memories for sure.
Definitely. And you also played Northeastern in the Hockey East Championship as well your freshman year. Talk about that game. What do you remember from it? Because it was at Cape Cod, and they don't do that anymore, but I thought it was pretty cool when they hosted it down in the Cape.
Yeah, yeah. So my first few years, we always had kind of a mental block around the Cape. We actually had a training camp there later on to try to get over that. But I mean, Northeastern was just kind of like a pest the entire time that I was there. I remember Kendall Coyne was there early on, so it was just trying to keep your gap with her, try not to let her get up to full speed, because if she did, she'd be gone. But yeah, I mean, that Northeastern rivalry, I would say, kind of followed all throughout my career at BC. Even the last year, I think we ended up playing them around 6 times to get to the Frozen Four. And it's just so tough to play a team that many times. But it definitely helps if there's some rivalry and some animosity built up, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And playing for Boston College, you have to play a lot of different teams a lot of times, especially like a team like BC, I mean BU, and then Northeastern, like you just mentioned. Does it ever get tiring playing kind of the same teams over and over again, or do you like it because it kind of builds up the rivalry and it makes the games more chippier?
Yeah, I would say that there's 2 sides to that coin. Like you said, it is nice when you get to know some of the players on the ice because you know their tendencies. And especially for me, if I had a good game against a team, then I would be so excited to play them next time because I'm like, okay, I've like had proven success against this team. Like Northeastern was actually my favorite rink to play in because I had like one good game their freshman year. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. But I mean, it's also tough because they get to know you too, right? Like the same plays that work maybe the first 2, 3 times that you played them aren't going to work games 4, 5, and 6.
Now, you played in the national tournament your freshman year as well. You played Harvard, and then you lost to Minnesota in a very close game that went to overtime. What did you learn from your first NCAA tournament experience, and how did you use that loss coming into your sophomore year?
Yeah. So that Frozen Four was just all adrenaline for me. I was a freshman. Didn't know that how hard it was to get there. Kind of just along for the ride, but was put in a position where I could contribute. I actually tied the game to put it into overtime, which is my favorite hockey memory of all time. And just playing in Minnesota, it's just such a different atmosphere. The stands are packed, it's so loud. And like I said, it's just all adrenaline. And so I think that because that was such a fun game and such a heartbreaking loss, that really drove not only me, but the rest of my class to be like, okay, we're going to get back here as many times as we can and hopefully win it, which we didn't, but.
Yeah, no, but playing Minnesota, you played at their home arena in the Frozen Four. Being on the road in that atmosphere, what was that like? Because I feel like it's awesome being the road team playing being in kind of a crowd that's against you, because when you silence them, it's like the greatest feeling ever. And then everyone's against you. You feel like you have to prove people wrong. So it gives you that extra energy to play well during that type of game.
For sure. Just like you said, it kind of gives you a chip on your shoulder, makes everything more exciting, every little success more sweet. Like you said, it's really fun to silence a crowd.
Now, in your sophomore year, you won your first bean pot. You beat Northeastern. Talk about winning your first bean pot, and what was the biggest difference you noticed in your team from your first year to your second year?
Yeah. So that was the Olympic year. So we're missing Alex Carpenter, which is obviously a huge loss, but it meant that a lot of other people had to step up. That bean pot was at home. So it was awesome to win at home. And I didn't realize that we played Northeastern twice, but good to beat them the second time.
Definitely, and playing in your home arena in the Beanpot. Talk about just that whole experience because that's really awesome, and especially winning it at your home arena as well.
Yeah, I mean, none of the rinks that you play the bean pot in are that far away, but it is nice to just like roll out of team meal, whatever, and go straight versus having to get on the bus and travel and move your bags. Um, I mean, it's always nice when you have Baldy and the marching band and everybody in the rink.
Now you played against Clarkson in the tournament your sophomore season. Talk about that Clarkson team, the challenges they brought, especially since they won the national tournament that year, and just talk about what you remember from that game as a whole.
Yeah, the main thing I remember is their damn train whistle or bell or whatever it is. I remember we all lined up for the starting lineups and it went dark. And every time they announced one of their players, this huge thing went off like right behind us. And I was so rattled because I had no idea what was going to happen. And then, I mean, it's not easy to lose, especially when you don't go all the way. But they were just like very strong, very fast, a very solid, complete team. And I think it really showed us that if we want to continue to get into that top level, we need to get stronger. We need to be a full unit that just comes in waves.
Now, you in your junior season, you played Boston University in the hockey's championship game. What do you think went wrong during that game? And talk about that championship game as a whole. And how did you use that championship game when you play Clarkson the next week in the national tournament, your junior season?
Yeah, that year was tough because we had a very long unbeaten streak. Um, it stinks to think about, but the only games we lost that year were games that mattered, championship games. So we had all this pressure built up, and then we ended up losing the bean pot this year for our first loss. And then I think that the rails just kind of came off a little bit. I just don't think we were really prepared to handle that pressure that year.
Now, you did, however, get revenge against Clarkson in the quarterfinals that season. How did that win feel, especially since they eliminated you the previous year? And talk about heading to another Frozen Four in your junior year.
Yeah, it was awesome to see them again, especially that they had to come to us this time. Kind of took the big loud noises out of it. But we were just clicking in that game. It's one of those games where you know that the whole team is going, the whole team is flowing, like ready to ride. And it just felt so good to beat them.
Was it a sense of relief from your perspective when you got to beat them? It kind of took the hump off your back of the Clarkson, because whenever a team beats you in the tournament and you get eliminated, you kind of think about it throughout the entire off season. So did that help beating them when you came into the Frozen Four your junior year?
Yeah. I think it was like when they did the selection show and they announced it, we were like, but then we got over that really quick. Our coaches did a really good job of focusing on us, saying we're a much different team than last year. Like that we've done X, Y, and Z to prepare. And so I think that we felt ready to go into that game.
Now, in your senior year, you were one of the big leaders on that team. What type of leadership did you want to bring Boston College, and were you more of a lead by example or a vocal leader on the team?
Yeah, we had a really dynamic leadership group that year. We had big personalities, big players. And I think that we all did a good job of leading by example. I mean, you can't have too many voices, otherwise it gets confusing. But I think that I was definitely a lead by example. Try to be positive, try to help everybody bring their best.
Now, did you learn anything from past leaders in your time at Boston College that helped your leadership skills when you were a senior?
Yeah, for sure. I think that you take a little bit from every captain that you play for. I've had the good fortune to play for a number of awesome captains. I feel like I've been able to learn a little bit from everyone. From Blake Bolden, my freshman year, who was always bringing up the freshmen and telling them, you got this. Like, because I think a lot of it is making sure that everyone is contributing as much as they can and feeling like they're contributing because of you. Like, if you can better people, then you're doing a good job as a leader, in my opinion.
Now, your team went undefeated that year. What did your team do to maintain that success throughout the regular season and the playoffs? And did you feel any kind of pressure on a day-to-day basis being undefeated?
Yeah, I mean, I think that our senior year, we were better prepared for it than we were our junior year. We kind of knew how to handle it better. One of the things we did differently was we kept our internal fire going. So we were very competitive. We had weekly mini game tournaments that had a cash prize just to kind of like keep the juices flowing, keep everyone fired up and getting better in practice. Because it's so easy to get complacent when you're winning. And I think that we did a really good job of coming to practice, getting better every day, pushing each other to be better. Um, it definitely is something that starts wearing on you. But like I said, I think that we were strong enough to handle it that year. And we were just so focused on finishing the thing.
Yeah, definitely. And with a lot of outside noise that your team faced, what did you do to try to keep that outside noise away from your team and just focus on the task at hand? Especially, it's kind of a hard thing to do, especially when you're such a young age. When you're in your early 20s, it's kind of hard to keep that outside noise out, especially nowadays with social media.
Yeah, I think it was just a lot of checking in and keeping people accountable. Our coaches did a really good job that year of calling us out if we weren't our best. Even if we won a game and it wasn't a good win, then we'd be working on things, we'd be fixing things. It wasn't just good enough to win, which I think was huge.
Now you won your final bean pot your senior year. What did that mean to you, and how did that help your team moving forward, especially since you played your final bean pot and you won your final bean pot your senior year? Just talk about the emotions you were feeling after that game.
Yeah, it's just like at that point, you know how special the bean pot is. You know it's your last bean pot. And especially coming from the year before where we had lost the bean pot and then lost the Hockey East Championship where we only felt like we were losing important games. When we won the bean pot, we're like, okay, we're a winning team. We can go all the way this year. We know how to finish the deal. I remember my dad was in town to watch the bean pot, and I turned my phone on after the game, and I just had so many texts from different people around campus, not even athletes, like people from class, random things, just so excited for us. And that's when you kind of realize that the whole campus is behind you and appreciates how special it is, and just to be there with my family, and it was awesome.
Yeah, and you also won your first Hockey East championship your senior year. What emotions were you feeling after that win, and what was your mindset heading into the tournament? That win must have been really special for you since it was your first Hockey East championship win.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of same line as the bean pot. That year we knew we were a championship team. We had always joked that we kind of had a block against hockey's championship, and that's why we worked so hard to put ourselves in a position to still get to the playoffs, even if we didn't win. But that year, that wasn't good enough. We were a championship team. We were going to win every championship that was presented to us.
Now you No, you played Northeastern in the first round in the tournament that year. Like you mentioned before, you played that team a lot. You even have to play them 6 to 8 times a season. Talk about that game, being at home and beating Northeastern in the first round and heading to your final Frozen Four. Was there any kind of pressure you felt? Was that game tougher than maybe the Clarkson game you played in that tournament, just because Northeastern kind of knew some of your tendencies heading into that game?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of those things where we had beat them 5 or 6 times, and it's like, okay, like something could happen here. Like you don't beat a team that many times in a row. And so that was definitely a mental block that we had to overcome and kind of keep the team focused on, let's not look through them, but this is a different game. This is playoff hockey. Like we've played them before, but this is playoff hockey. So this is a new ball game, and keeping focused that way.
Now, you played Clarkson in the Frozen Four that year. Talk about that game and heading to your first national championship and getting over that hump of winning in the semifinals.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we were the first team to win that semifinal game. That game just had so much energy. It was a big ice with Northeastern. I don't know. I just get excited thinking about it even still several years later, because I think that was the most monumental win of my BC career.
Now, that tournament was in New Hampshire, and the reason why I mentioned that is because New Hampshire has a much larger ice surface than most rinks in college hockey. Was there any adjustment you had to make playing in that Frozen Four with the larger ice sheet? And as a defenseman, do you actually like the larger ice sheet more because you have more space on the ice to create plays?
Yeah. So answering the last part of your question first, as an offensive defenseman, love the extra space, especially when I'm jumping up in the play. It also, on the other side of that, is really easy to get pulled outside the dots. So it's just something you have to be aware of. We looked at it as an advantage going in, because we had obviously played there a lot more than any other teams in the tournament did. And so it was more of a source of confidence for us.
Also, another advantage you had was because New Hampshire is kind of closer to BC than it is to like Minnesota and Clarkson. So the travel must have been nice going into that Frozen Four compared to the other ones you were part of.
Yeah, it was great. It was great just not having to jump on the plane or do that whole thing.
Now, you lost the national championship game to Minnesota that year. How hard was that loss? Not only because it was your final college hockey game, but it ended your undefeated season. And what do you think went wrong during that game?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say what went wrong. Um, I genuinely believe that every player on our team laid it all out on the ice. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. Um, it was really tough, especially getting back to campus. And I remember the headline of our school newspaper the next day was 40 and no, which was kind of brutal. Some of the other athletes actually went through and stole all the newspapers so we wouldn't see them. But obviously that sucks, especially when you've put together so much work and it all culminates in a loss. And it took a while to get over that and realize that our season wasn't defined by that moment, and to kind of take a step back and realize what we did accomplish.
Yeah, no, you won the Beanpot twice, and you also won a hockey's championship. So, like, I guess when you look back on it, you look back on it more in a positive way than you used to. But like right after the loss, it's kind of hard to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, looking back at your time at Boston College, how did it help you as a hockey player and as a person? And what was your favorite memory overall?
Yeah. Um, as a person, I feel like coming to Boston, having that new experience, like again, assimilating to like a new city, moving to the East Coast, was a challenge. So personally, it just allowed me to grow as an individual. Um, I don't know. I'm just so grateful for all my experiences at BC, for all my friends there, for the network. I never ever would regret going there. Great program. I wish we had the locker room that they do now, but I feel like maybe we contributed to that a little bit. I'd say my favorite memory is probably either the Frozen Fours or the senior bean pot was really special. And just the senior year ride. We had such a good team. We were so close. I feel like everyone that was in my class had contributed since we were freshmen. And so there was no group that was more veteran. We had all been playing since we were freshmen. And so to have 4 years of contributing, working towards something, and then to just kind of have it rolling was a really, really cool feeling.
Yeah, what's it like playing in those Frozen Fours and just the atmosphere, being a player in that? Because I went to one Frozen Four. It was in Boston. It was for the men's side. And it was really cool, just the whole pep band, the red carpet experience, and just the whole scenery as in general. What was it like being a player in that? Because I can't imagine what's like going through the tunnel, heading into warm-ups in a Frozen Four. There must be a lot going through your mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I was lucky enough to work with a mental skills coach who helped me to realize that it is a game. It's an important game, and it's something that you should be totally excited for. But at the end of the day, you lace up your skates the same way. Um, so definitely easier said than done, but you just kind of gotta put it all out there.
Now, I want to ask you about some of the players you got to play with throughout your career with Boston College. One of them was Megan Keller. What was it like being your teammate both on and off the ice? And just talk about her hockey skills because obviously she's a gold medalist now and she's one of the best hockey players in the world. What was it like playing with her in college?
Yeah, and Megan Keller's the best defenseman in the world, like no questions asked. Um, and she's just so humble. She's so goofy. She treats everyone from Alex Carpenter to someone who might be helping us with sticks the exact same way. She's just such a good individual, comes from such a great family, and so good on the ice, so fun to play with, so positive. I just can't speak highly enough of Megan Keller.
What was it like seeing her win the gold medal?
It was cool, especially because there were so many people from that team on that team. It was awesome.
Yeah, and another member on that gold medal team that you played with was Callie Flanagan. What was it like being her teammate, both on and off the ice?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Callie's playing style, but she's very high energy, very quick feet, and I would say that is her personality as well. Callie's great. She's so fun, so high energy. You can tell that she has fun playing hockey every day, which is always a fun person to play with.
Now, another player you got to play with, and I feel like she doesn't get enough credit as she deserves, is Kalia Johnson. She was a fantastic defenseman. What was it like being her teammate, both on and off the ice? And just talk about the adversity she went through because she had a little health scare during her time with Boston College.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kalia is the player I wish I could be. She shows up to the rink and she's dancing and she's goofy, whereas I feel like I get a little more stressed out. So it's always awesome to have someone who's a little looser in the locker room. And then, I mean, all the props to her for trucking along. I feel like there were a few postseasons, a few preseasons where she had different nagging injuries. She had her, like you said, her health scare, and she still showed up to the rink every day with a smile and made it through, made everybody better.
Now, the last teammate you got to play with that I want to talk to you about is Alex Carpenter. She won a Patty Kazmaier Award. What was it like being her teammate both on and off the ice? And just talk about the hockey skills that she has because every time I watch her play, it's always something new and she always finds a way to impress me every time she plays.
For sure. I mean, to your point, she is continually growing. She's never satisfied. She's always working. She's by far the hardest worker I know. You want to talk about a professional, Alex Carpenter is a professional. She's so fun to play with. She makes everyone around her better. She's always thinking the game, and truly, truly honored to have played with her.
Now, what was it like playing under Coach Crowley, and how did she help your hockey development throughout your time in college?
Yeah, Kinger's phenomenal. She's um, a very intense coach, but she also cares about us and she communicates that, and she's very fun too. She ran more of the forwards. Courtney Kennedy ran the defense, and she was obviously a very, very elite player in her day, and she's a very elite coach, and feel very grateful to have learned from her while I was at BC.
We're now in the non-hockey segment of the podcast where I ask you some non-hockey questions. My first one is, what's your favorite thing about Boston that isn't hockey related?
I just love how into sports people are here. Literally growing up in Seattle, if you go down by the Mariners field, it's easier to buy a Yankees jersey than it is a Mariners jersey. And that's changing a little bit, but coming out here and seeing how people bleed for their Boston sports is just really cool.
I can attest to that. I'm a bit of a sports nut myself, being from Boston. And no, the Red Sox are awesome. I'm a big Bruins guy myself. And yeah, no, it's just awesome to grow up in a city where sports are everything, especially being a college athlete. I think that must be really cool
Yeah.
to be a player in this sports loving city, because it's unlike anything else. Because I'm just going through all the college cities. It's just a bit different just looking
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Definitely something in the water.
Definitely. Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a really tough one. Hmm. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I would go with Tom Brady just because of all the adversity he went through, being a sixth-round draft pick and having to work his way up to be the Patriots starter, and just how he's so successful now.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. I might copy you, especially coming off of his Super Bowl win.
Yeah, I know it was with Tampa. I'm more of a Bill guy, but I was still happy to see him win that one.
For sure.
Now, what music do you like to listen to in general, or what do you like to listen to before a game?
Yeah, I'm a big country person. So Eric Church, Morgan Wallen, Shania Twain really runs the gamut.
Nice. Now, who was the funniest teammate you got to play with at BC?
Ooh, probably Megan Greaves. High energy player. Didn't really get as much credit as she maybe deserved, but if you wanted to laugh, you needed the locker room loosened up. She was always there to do it.
Now, who had the best style at BC besides yourself?
I was gonna say I had the 4500 with the bubble going. Um, she wasn't there when I was there, but Kelly Stack, because we have a lot of pictures on the wall, and I always liked her style.
Was there anyone good who had good off-ice style when you were there?
I think I had pretty good off-ice style.
I would agree with that. Now, last non-hockey question. I guess this is kind of a hockey question. Is what was your favorite road arena to play in during your time in college?
That's a great question. That was one of my favorite parts of my college experience, just getting to play in all these super historic arenas that you might walk in, but not get a chance to play in. I loved playing at Northeastern. That was my favorite rink to play in. I think Matthews Arena is so cool, so much history there. The ice is good. You didn't ask, but my least favorite rink to play in is Providence. It's the worst.
Wow.
They have a horrible neutral zone. It's so short. You can never get used to it.
Oh, I always liked Providence when I go to there, just because the stadium is kind of small, but like you have good vantage points through what you've seen. I do like Matthews a lot. It's a bit of an older rink, but they've kind of renovated in the past 2 years, I think, and they now have this giant scoreboard, and it's really awesome. And the
Yeah,
dog pound's sick because it's not like on the loge seats; it's more on the balcony, so you kind of hear it as a background. I feel like
for
as a player
sure.
that would be cool because you always hear them, but you don't see
Yeah,
them.
yeah. They always had a good turnout too.
Now, back to some hockey questions now. You got to play in Hockey East. In my opinion, it's the best college hockey conference. What's it like being a player in that conference and just having no night off, because even the eighth ranked team gives you such a hard battle?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you can't take anybody lightly. It's a very high skill league. A lot of finesse players. Just you got to bring your A game every evening.
Now, what should be done to help grow women's hockey?
Ooh, I think it's a lot of exposure. you need girls to have role models. You need them to know where they can reach. I remember growing up in Seattle, there were two girls that were very successful coming out of Seattle before me. Brooke Whitney was one of them. And I remember that my dad had me sit down with her and have, it was a hot cocoa because I was little, but have a coffee chat with her just about what made her successful and what got her to where she was. The other one was Kelly Stevens. Also was lucky enough to meet with her when I was younger. And so for me, having these role models who had made it out of Seattle, who had achieved what I wanted to achieve, and just having the conversation with them was very helpful. And I think it would have been even more so if I had had more of an opportunity to see them play.
Are you trying to be a role model for kids nowadays? Because I see you do all those camps around the city, and it seems pretty cool. And it seems like the kids really love seeing you on those camps.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm a role model, but I love growing the game. It's something I'm very passionate about. Very passionate about people using hockey, using sports, using whatever they're passionate about to help teach them other lessons in life. Something I didn't realize until after BC, when I was in law school and entering the working world, is the skills that you learn from hockey and being a teammate are so applicable past hockey. And so that's why I'm so passionate about growing the games, because I see how those skills can help people in all areas of life.
Yeah, definitely. I was listening to an interview with Wayne Gretzky, and he was telling the interviewer like how hockey's helped him when he retired, and just like how you learn how to lose, how you learn how to win, and how you learn how to be a good teammate. And these are all skills that you have to have when you are done playing hockey and just in life in general. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's a great quote.
Now, you played for the Boston Pride after your time with the BC Eagles. Talk about being a pro hockey player in Boston, and what's it like being a female pro athlete?
Yeah. I mean, it was a great next step for me. I loved my time with the Boston Pride. I loved seeing how the league grew over the 4 years I was there. Um, Being a female athlete, the wages aren't livable yet, which means that you have to have another job, which I was in law school, so it was fine for me. I can think of no better side job to pay my rent than playing hockey for a living. But I'm very thankful for the opportunity to continue playing, to continue growing the game, and to pursue another passion, that being law school.
Now, what advice would you give a younger player who's getting recruited? What advice would you give them to help get them get more notoriety and make it to college hockey and get that college hockey scholarship?
Yeah, I would say every time that you step on the ice, you want to show what a hard worker you are. So you never know who's watching. I mean, that was a game that I used to play in Seattle, is if it was a late practice or something and you didn't really want to be there, I'd pick out somebody in the stands who I didn't know where they were, and I would convince myself in my head that they were a college scout or they were a USA scout or something. And for me, just having that mindset of you never know who's watching and I'm always working hard, especially when nobody's looking, is a really good way to set yourself up for success.
Now, what should I do better as an interviewer to improve and make this podcast better?
I think this is very professional and very good. This is definitely one of the better podcasts I've been on. So keep it up. I can't believe you've only been doing this a year.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. It really means a lot to me. Do you have any shout outs before we let you go about to any of your friends, family members, or former teammates? You're our second Boston College player we've ever had on, which is pretty crazy to me.
Who was the first?
Kalia Johnson.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll give a shout out to my dad because it was his birthday yesterday.
Awesome. Well, happy birthday to him. And thank you so much for coming on, Lexi. I really appreciate it. I wish you nothing but the best moving forward with your law career. And you're a great person. And I just wanted to let you know that. And you're also one of my favorite hockey players to watch. So it was an honor getting the chance to interview you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Can't wait
No
to
problem.
follow your podcast in the future.
No problem. Take care. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.